the Caribbean Development Bank is here because we are one of those institutions that are going to be working with the Caribbean countries to help to mitigate and adapt to climate change. As a development finance institution, what we are about is trying to identify bankable projects that will help our countries to become more resilient, more sustainable, so that the areas of focus would be sustainable energy projects and also projects on the climate adaptation side, such as sea defenses and things of that nature.
Would you say that the government of the most developed country in the world take care enough about the destiny of Caribbean island and all of every vulnerable country in the world?
If they have our interest at heart? Well, I don't want to be passing judgment. I come here in hope and expectation that the science is overwhelming, the scientific evidence that is, and that there is a sufficient level of confidence, a sufficient level of ambition that recognizes that all of us live in this world, and even though some of us are more vulnerable than others, it requires a collective effort in order to create the type of world that we want to leave behind for our children. So I'm optimistic. This process has been going on for some time, but I must say that I get a sense that we're getting it finally, and that we're going to be able to leave here with a better solution than we have had in previous COP engagements.
Why is this COP different than the other COP? Would you say that your voices from those little islands are more listenable by the big governments?
I would like to think that the messages that we have been sending out are being heard. But we're realistic. We recognize that small countries like ours, we have a population of about 20 million in total. So that you wouldn't expect that we would have a tremendous impact, even though I think that we have punched above our weight in respect of getting the message out. The Caribbean, even though it's very small, we're pretty well known internationally because we are tourist destinations for the large part, and we also are known internationally for some things, our music, our ability in sports, and things of that nature. So we're not invisible.
Would you say that your culture and your tourism business is threatened by climate change?
I think that will be fairly obvious, because when you consider that tourism is the principal source of foreign exchange earnings for most of our countries, and we're experiencing sea level rise to the extent that Caribbean tourism still is very much sun, sea and sand. The damage to our reefs and the damage to our beaches and so on inevitably represent not only a threat to our environment but also to the most important industry in our countries.
So you have a team of negotiators which is helping the most developed country in negotiation, right? What are they trying to obtain?
Well, we're not negotiating directly. What is happening is that the countries that we lend to, they are represented here. They have their negotiating teams. We're working with them. We provide advice and assistance. But we're also here to develop relationships. One of the things that we as an institution would do is intermediate funds, intermediate climate funds that might be approved here and climate funds that have already been approved. We intermediate those resources to our borrowing countries. So we have discussions on an ongoing basis with those providers of resources. We have applications in for accreditation to the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. And our expectation is that we'll be receiving funding from those entities early next year.
Okay, so what will be the best scenario for the country you are representing?
Well, our level of ambition is that we would like to see emissions capped to the extent that warming would not exceed 1.5 degrees centigrade of pre-industrial times. So that's our level of ambition. We know that it's greater than what we are hearing being bandied about by other countries, but we know our circumstances, and we believe we have a responsibility to set the bar high. Otherwise, this phenomenon called climate change could represent for us an existential threat. It is that serious.
Okay, just to conclude, can you tell us about the project that you are financing?
The largest and perhaps most exciting initiative that we are pursuing at this time is what we call a GeoSmart project. This is a geothermal initiative in the small islands of the Eastern Caribbean. I'm speaking here about Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, St. Lucia, for example. Why is geothermal energy such an exciting proposition? First of all, it's clean energy. Clean energy, exists in abundance. The resource exists in abundance in those islands and others in our Caribbean space. And it has the potential to be a game changer for these countries because they would become energy secure, they would be less dependent on imported fossil fuels, which is very volatile because that's the nature of the markets in which these products are traded. So that if these countries can develop their geothermal potential, what it will mean that they'll become energy exporters, they'll earn foreign exchange, and they'll hopefully also be able to bring down the cost of electricity, which would make their economies more competitive.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and for your answers.